Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Coco Bandicoot here, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Klonoa Phantasy Reverie series, while we playing through Klonoa Daughter Phantomile for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, and of course the Nintendo Switch. So last time we've essentially did manage to traverse into not only Vision 4-1 but also with Vision 4-2 as well, and relatively speaking that is by far the shortest world in the game, despite the fact that, well, relatively speaking unfortunately though, Klonoa's grandpa passed away due to the forms of that specific attack. So as a result, it looks like that the moon pendant has been stolen, so hopefully we'll try to able to catch up with the forms of Joka, so relatively speaking everything else will be pretty much accounted for. So today, for this video, is about the fact that we're going to be continuing things on through the forms of this entire Klonoa Daughter Phantomile game, in this entire duology collection or something like that. And as a result, we're going on to Vision 5-1. So as a result, we are now going to be going into the Sun Kingdom, or should I say the Kingdom of the Sun. So relatively speaking it always kind of reminds me of the forms of the Princess Celestia kind of vibes to it. But enough about that particular pony references here and there for the time being, so let's just jump right into Vision 5-1. So I believe, relatively speaking is that Vision 5 itself, alongside with the forms of Vision 6 coming up, that those particular levels might be extremely lengthy, probably due to the forms of multiple aspects. So hopefully we should be able to complete those levels in due time, so everything else will be come to expect. So anyways though, so yeah, a few things we want to explain for this point today is that, well, if you couldn't tell already, it's about the fact that today's day is of course the 27th of February today, in some cases in 2024 today. So naturally speaking it's about the fact that for those of you probably wondering, yes, happy Pokemon Day everybody, especially concerning for the fact that obviously if you couldn't tell, that recently Pokemon Presents has already just happened, so as a result, originally I was trying to able to mention about that, but let's just say it's probably best if we let Maxi will mention more about it if he goes back onto Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. So just to ensure for the fact that, well, if you couldn't tell already, that recently, during the forms of in the previous weekend, recently, that Starlight Glimmer actually somehow managed to get started with the forms of Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake for the Nintendo Switch as a Let's Play. Well, the obvious reason of why is because it's so great able to go back onto the original game again, except this time in gorgeous HD visuals, and on top of that, it was on the Nintendo Switch. Or specifically, it is so great to go back onto the first game, but as a remake, so you probably get the idea for this point. And it looks like, as it turns out, for the majority of 2024 up to this point, that we've almost tackled through the majority of certain Nintendo Switch games up to this point during the forms of in 2024, while apart from a couple of exceptions, which there are Sonic 3D Fleeky's Island, because for those of you who don't know, we did somehow play that game in during the forms of the Sega Mega Drive Ultimate Collection for the Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3. Well, mind you, we were originally trying to play that particular compilation on the Xbox 360 version, but unfortunately though, we have problems with the batteries so far. So relatively speaking, that was about the fact that at least thankfully with DualShock 3 controller, thankfully it's rechargeable. So because of that though, we don't need to necessarily try to worry about keep on changing the batteries every single time. And relatively speaking when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, obviously it's still stuck on not only for the Xbox 360, but also on the PlayStation 3 as well. So generally speaking, that was about the fact that not every single Let's Plays in 2024 can be specifically Nintendo Switch focused, but relatively speaking we actually getting ourselves a good chunk of those specific Nintendo Switch game Let's Play so far, which for me personally though, I honestly don't mind at all, mainly because, relatively speaking still Nintendo Switch is a really cool system, especially concerning for the fact that until at this point, that I believe during when it gets to the point until our next Sunday, not this Sunday, but the week after or something like that, until when it gets to the point until on the 3rd of March, it will mark the 7-year mark before the likes of the Nintendo Switch first released. So, and I think at this point in time, that relatively speaking, I was about the fact that now we've actually got the Pokemon Presents out of the way, despite the fact that we haven't exactly mentioned something related to the forms of what specific stuff has been announced. Throughout the forms of the Pokemon Presents presentation, all we need left now is just the ND World presentation and exponentially the last batch of the first-party Nintendo titles for the Nintendo Switch before they move on to the next generation of consoles for Nintendo. To be more specifically though, Nintendo Switch 2, despite the fact that, well, relatively speaking though, I just simply give up on looking up on not only leaks and rumors, but it's also about the fact that sometimes not every single article can be true, mainly because no matter what though, it just always gets to me most of the time, especially during the forms of not only the beginning portion of the year, but also during at some points in August as well. So generally speaking, I was about the fact that I'm basically just saying this right now, that I'm glad that we are basically done with the forms of the Partner Showcase presentations, because let me tell you, we've actually gone through all 6 of those Partner Showcases in the past few years. To be more specifically, for the majority of the forms of the 2020s era of years. To be more accurate though, we've gotten 4 of them from the likes of in 2020, in some cases the lockdown year, and on top of that we've got only 1 of them in 2022. Now it still is definitely a good one, I'll admit though. And relatively speaking though, we've actually got the most recent one in 2024, and you know what's very weird? It's about the fact that every time when the majority of the forms of the Sonic the Hedgehog movies is going to be approaching on its release. Well, to be more accurate though, in 2020 we've got Sonic the Hedgehog the movie, and as a result that was the year when they also introduced Partner Showcase presentations during that specific period. And during the course of in 2022, we've actually got Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie, and to go alongside with that, we got ourselves our Partner Showcase in a Nintendo Direct Mini. And now in 2024, that Sonic the Hedgehog 3 the movie is going to be on its way, while the Partner Showcase, it did somehow takes place. So generally speaking though, I felt it was a little bit mind-boggling to me. Well, as a result, I'm still not a big fan of those particular Partner Showcases directs, but I'm hoping about the fact this will be the actual wrap-up of the entire Partner Showcase saga when it comes to likely for its presentations alike. Well, when it comes to years basis, that it feels like the entire trilogy of those years when they managed to bring in Partner Showcases, which obviously the first one is obviously 2020, the second being in 2022, and the third and the final one of this entire year trilogy when it comes to Partner Showcases, and that was obviously in 2024. So, relatively speaking, I was just about the fact that a lot of people still get a little bit bummed out about the fact that not only we haven't exactly got more information upon, let's say, Shantae Advance Risky's Revolution, but it's also about the fact that still no luck of the forms of Hollow Knight's Silk Song just yet. Maybe eventually they'll be able to actually mention those during at some point on the actual ND World, if that became true, during the course of it next month in March. So, we shall see though, we shall see. So, anyways, speaking of which though, is about the fact that until at some point on Thursday coming up, that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to be closer to its release. And because of that, I'm not exactly sure how the reviews is going to turn out to be. My guess, it will obviously be 10 out of 10. Probably is because of the most highly anticipated games to be ever going to be releasing in 2024, ranging from its amazing visuals and addictive gameplay, probably the soundtrack I would imagine, but we're obviously not going to be mentioning any spoilers for the time being, because obviously once that game decides to come out, obviously, like I said before, until at some point on this Thursday coming up, usually on the leap day of all things, which as a result is quite interesting, all things considered. So, but either way, as far as another thing I would like to mention about is about the fact that it looks like no matter what though, as you probably already know, ever since yesterday, we finally get a chance to able to receive our brand new amiibo, which as a result, you probably already know about this ever since yesterday. So yes, we finally got ourselves Sora amiibo from the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate lineup, and because of that though, we are very happy about that, especially concerning that originally we were trying to able to get this alongside with the forms of around the same time as when Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the Switch version came out. But obviously, no matter what though, Amazon decides able to list that particular amiibo quite later compared to the forms of how it does it since before the pre-orders exist. So because of that though, not exactly sure they just somehow managed to list this a little bit later compared to the forms of the earliest point. Just before the actual pre-orders has now been accessible. Well, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that at least we are very glad that we did somehow receive that amiibo for about, let's say 10 days or so, because obviously no matter what though, it's about the fact that, well, luckily we did manage able to already level up level 50 for Sora amiibo at the very least, so... And in terms of the forms of the costume outfits that we did somehow choose, obviously I cannot help it for myself about the fact that we all obviously choose Kingdom Hearts 2 counterpart of Sora, just because that is by far my favorite Sora outfit in terms of the Kingdom Hearts series. So, speaking of something Kingdom Hearts related though, I recently kept King 74 that he's almost finishing up in terms of the forms of the main story in Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix version, because no matter what though, is about the fact that all he needs to do is left now is of course he's going on to the forms of the second visit in Olympus Coliseum, according to what he says anyway, after that particular massive mental breakdown from that particular experience of Aquatica, which as a result, because obviously Atlantica as a world itself is filled to the brim with mini-games, not so much a lot of emphasis on exploration, well, as a result, it's just mini-games, and that's all there is to really think about when it comes to Atlantica in Kingdom Hearts 2, because obviously you have to go for a serious amount of those songs. Like, some of them were actually based off from the actual film itself, The Little Mermaid, and some of them were actually, like, I don't know, original? Or something like that, specifically for Kingdom Hearts 2, well, as a result for that particular Ursula boss fight, despite the fact it was a total joke, unless if you really want to able to, like, just mashing buttons and all that stuff with no real thought to it, so, but either way, aside from all that stuff though, there is technically another thing that I suppose that Starlight Glimmer actually forgot to mention about during the course of the Mario vs. Donkey Kong Remake Let's Play, well, to be more specifically on the Switch version. As it turns out, it's about the fact that Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble is actually going to be receiving some tons of DLC. Likely, for instance, they've obviously going to bring in some Sega DLC characters, which I always appreciate about. My guess it might able to actually bring, I don't know, Sonic the Hedgehog once again, just like the forms of how it does it in Banana Blitz HD, and I don't know, maybe Tails as well, just like in Banana Mania, or maybe they decide able to include classic Knuckles for a change. Well, we're not exactly sure when does it gonna be able to be exist exactly, because I already know for a fact that we've almost nearly at the end of February before we move on to March, and as a result, we've only just got about roughly 3 more days to go until March is about to approach, so everything else will become to expect, so... no! I did not meant to get close towards the edge! That's fine, because I've obviously activated the checkpoint from earlier, so that should be all well, I guess. Oh, and also, something worth noting for is about the fact that, relatively speaking though, there's also another thing I want to classify for mentioning about this as well. As it turns out, there is actually technically a new character that's actually introduced in Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble. Well, obviously, we're still able to get the usual main 6 monkey playable characters ever since in not only in Banana Blitz HD, but also on Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania as well. And as it turns out, we're still able to experience not only Ai, but also Mimi, Baby, Gongon, Yen Yen, and Doctor. But there is a new character that's going to be introduced in that game for Banana Rumble, and as it turns out, her name was Paulette, which, yeah, kind of a weird name, but regardless of everything else though, is about the fact that she was at least a new, I don't know, a new playable character or something like that. Well, truth be told though, is about the fact I'm still very excited able to check that new game out until when it comes out during at some point on 25th of June. So, anyway, so we somehow gathered all 4 of these orbs, so you know what that means, the level is basically done. So once we do able to activate the Switch, then obviously we can able to move on to the next stage, which as it turns out, it appears to be Vision 5-2 basically. So yeah, everything's all in check, all that considerable amount of things we did somehow do for this point, so... But either way though, there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well, is that as it turns out also is about the fact that you know what the forms of, there was the upcoming game called, Shin Megami Tensei 5, with the Forms of Vengeance. Well, as it turns out, is about the fact that ever since in 2021, that game was only exclusive for the Nintendo Switch for some time. Well, as it turns out, is about the fact that not only that Vengeance is going to be releasing on Switch at some point on the 21st of June in 2024, but as it turns out, it's also going to be releasing on multiple platforms as well, ranging from PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Windows PC, Xbox One, and of course, Xbox Series X/S. So just to ensure for the fact that most Shin Megami Tensei fans will not miss out on the forms of this particular 5th installment of the series, especially with the Forms of Vengeance version as far as I'm aware. Now, as far as I'm usually concerned, is about the fact that I believe, according to the forms of the article, that Vengeance is going to be twice as long as the original. So yeah, that seems kind of surprising as far as this is concerned. Oh, there's also another thing I want to mention about, is about the fact that it looks like Brawlhalla was actually going to be revealing the Star Wars collaboration. So that's something that's classified for noticing this from the start. So yeah, everything else will be come to expect. So either way, Vision 5-1 is completely done. So yeah, it looks like we've almost nearly at the final stretch of Klonoa Daughter Phantomile before we move on to Klonoa 2, Lunity's Veil, and I'm still very surprised about the fact that it will be pretty cool to go back onto Klonoa 2, Lunity's Veil once again, except this time on modern systems, ranging from, you know, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, etc, which you probably already know about this right from the start, so... Anyway, so once again we've received a silver medal right there on the Forms of Vision 5-1, but that's just mainly because I was pretty much used to trying to able to rescue all of the citizens. So with that, I can able to actually just aim for 100% completion, apart from one exception, which is of course obtaining every single crystals, just because no matter what though, I found this to be very impossible to do this. So, but either way, let's move on to Vision 5-2, and this particular gimmick's case is about the fact that we have to do with the light and darkness gimmick. So because of that, when it's become darkness that you can't pick something up for specific enemies as projectiles, while it's gone light, you can able to actually pick up stuff. So because of that though, yeah, if you probably already know what that is, for those of you who've already seen not only the original PlayStation 1 version of this playthrough, but also with the forms of the Wii version as well, so nothing changes from there. So, relatively speaking though, there's also another thing I want to address something about this as well, is that in Japan though, Nintendo will stop repairing the 2DS alongside with the new 3DS and new 3DS XL, so I'm guessing it's because, well, obviously Nintendo's moving on to the Nintendo Switch, which is obvious kind of stuff, so everything else will be come to expect when it comes to moving along to the forms of other generations to come. So anyway, there's also another thing I surprisingly forgot to comment on back in Journey Forms of a couple of days ago. It's been 5 years ago since How to Train Your Dragon The Hidden World did somehow came out on the big screen. Although despite the fact that we have not seen that film on the big screen, because obviously we are pretty much, well, as far as what Sonic did told me something, that he was incredibly hyped about the forms of Avengers Endgame, Journey Forms of in 2019, alongside with the forms of Toy Story 4, despite the fact that our opinions on Toy Story 4 has been changed significantly onto pretty meh experience. Well, don't get me wrong, it is still not a bad film per se, but it's definitely not usually the greatest. Like, it's definitely not one of the greatest movies ever, just because, well, every now and then things have changed when it comes to character development, and on top of that, well, there's only like 2 set pieces they've obviously went into, not only for the sake of the carnival setting, but it's also about the fact of the second-hand antique store or something like that, or antique store. So, that's as far as I was expecting for this point, but still. and I was not too surprised about the fact that the 5th one is going to be on its way, which I'm still curious to check it out, but my expectations, it feels a bit, I don't know, a little bit mixed on. Well, as a result, it does have some bit of expectations here and there, but obviously we have to wait until specifically in 2 years time, so until 2026, which that was roughly around the same time as when the Winter Olympics is going to take place in Italy. So that might be something, I suppose, when it comes to releasing around the same time as the actual Winter Olympics is going to take place. So anyway, let's go ahead and grab this first piece here. Oh, can I possibly able to actually... Oh, so close. I was really hoping I can able to actually skip that particular portion. Or can I just do that? Okay. That works for me, I guess. So, anywho though, so yeah, while looking back in Journey films of around 5 years ago, since when How to Train Your Dragon The Hidden World came out, it was still as pretty epic even to this day, especially considering that was the most exhilarating wrap-up of the films of the How to Train Your Dragon film trilogy, because I will say that The Hidden World did certainly hold up very well after 5 years since when it first came out, despite the fact that it's kind of a shame I've never actually seen it on day 1 during the films of on the cinemas or anything else like that, because like I said before, we're really into Marvel stuff in the past few moments notice, so but at least on the upside is though is about the fact that we still got ourselves the 3 movie collection at the very least, so that way I can easily rewatch those amazing How to Train Your Dragon movies at any time, any point, or anywhere, especially considering that we still got the DVD portable player with us, so potentially speaking though, if I go out somewhere, then exponentially we obviously attempt able to boot up certain films like this, so that certainly takes the cake. So anyways though, speaking of which though, is about the fact that I've noticed about the fact that the live action movie is definitely going to be happening and during at some point until next year, so yeah, I've got no words to say about that, I guess. So anyway, as far as like I said this before, is about the fact that obviously Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble will be getting a grand total of 6 Sega guest characters as DLC. Like, I totally bet about the fact that the first DLC character they're about to be revealed is obviously Sonic the Hedgehog, because obviously Sonic becomes playable during the course of it not only in Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz HD as an unlockable character by simply beating the main story campaign, usually for the sake of the forms of Worlds 1 through 8, in order to able to unlock Sonic the Hedgehog, whilst unlike in Banana Mania, you simply unlock him by simply purchasing him in the actual shopping mode. So, as a result, I'm guessing about the fact that Sonic is now going to be a part of the DLC or something like that, but then again, it's all about speculations at this point, especially not only does it reveal 6 guest characters for the Sega characters as far as I'm concerned, they're also going to be including not 1, but 15 customizable items for the sake of the DLC for Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble. So yeah, that's pretty insane if you ask me. Well, mind you, I'm only going to be focusing on guest characters because obviously I do care about the forms of playable characters, not so much customization options. So, I mean, interesting in theory, but it's just about the fact that I'm much more hyped about the forms of, you know, playable characters, just like the forms of how it does it back in last year for the likes of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Booster Course Pass DLC. And did you know about the fact that until around that time, until at some point in March, the Booster Course Pass Wave 4 was expected to become 1 year old until specifically in the next couple of days' time. So yeah, time flies, you know? Especially concerning after that specific point that, are you kidding me? It does not hit that particular enemy in the distance. Oh great, it's all about the timing thing, isn't it? I always found this part to be kind of slow because you have to wait until when the actual, well, light brings back up, and you have to wait until when the darkness decides able to be, well, had enough, I suppose. So, oh yeah, something's worth noting for, thank you guys so much for supporting our channel recently, because as it turns out, we somehow received 800 subscribers just recently. I think it did happen sometime during the forms of sometime in the weekend. So yeah, I would like to thank you guys for able to support our channel. because I would like to appreciate about this fact. So all needs left now is just basically we now need to aim for 900 or something like that. It seems kind of weird about the fact that we've actually reached a milestone. Well, in regards of the forms of 100 plus subscribers in journey forms of each and every single year up to this point, well, let's just hope that 2024 will easily double it during at some point later down the road, but it all really depends on the forms of preferences, I suppose. But either way though, yeah, I was very happy for you guys to be able to actually keep on subscribing to our channel recently, because after all, that we've now on 802 so far, so yeah, that was actually a really good amount that we somehow got. And I must say is about the fact that it certainly beats the likes of the forms of Mexi10's YouTube channel at this point. More than double. Yeah, more than double indeed. Because as far as I'm concerned, that Mexi10 was actually on 401 subscribers, which is like a half amount compared to ours. So it feels like the Mexi Toys is actually a lot more superior. At least as far as I'm concerned anyway, so... But either way, let's go through here to able to grab, as usual, some more crystals, including a 1-up token, just in case if we don't want to die too many times. Especially whenever we get to a point until when we finish up the main game itself, you know, with Klonoa daughter Phantomile on, you know, I mean, the third version of the game. So, just to ensure for extra levels coming up, so... Anyways though, so let's go and activate the switch from a distance, and yeah, it's just a heart, just in case if we want to restore our health at one point, so... And I suppose the next thing I want to mention about is about the fact that when it comes to Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble gigabyte storage they somehow contain, it looks like about the fact that that game will cost about 3.3 gigabytes of storage. So because of that though, I'm not exactly sure if it's considerably bigger compared to the forms of how it does it for not only for Banana Blitz HD, but also on Banana Mania as well. I might look at the comparison when it comes to the forms of those other two games until for later. Well, I suppose we'll probably let Maxi will mention more about it if he goes back on to Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 after all. So... Anyways, let's activate this particular switch to able to activate this little elevator thing right here, so we can able to continue our progressioning there. And there's a checkpoint right there in case if I want to activate it, and also there's another one up there. But here's the catch, we do need the specific enemy in order to be able to do performing a double jump, basically, so... Because that's exactly what we're about to aiming for. By simply activate all of these switches, just to ensure for the fact that the actual cage decided to get lower, so... And then, oh jeez, that was close. I almost get knocked back by that particular fire booster right here. But, yeah, that's as far as saying goes. I think that's as far as we can able to talk about. Oh yeah, there was technically one last thing I want to mention about. Is that what I've noticed is about the fact that with the most recent Marvel animated series called X-Men 97, as it turns out, that is officially not canon to the forms of the MCU, which stands for Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, yeah, not exactly sure about the fact that they did somehow mention that it was not canon. So, I guess that makes it pretty obvious when it comes to likely for knowing about the fact that, well, you know what I mean. So... Anyways though, so let's just go ahead and continue things on for this point, and straight to the point, we've almost nearly at the end of this stage, so just to ensure for the fact that we have to dodge a lot of these fire boosters, and if you dare touch the lava, that's instant death, just like the forms of how it does it on most of those 2D Mario games, you know. And with that, we somehow made our way to the end, and it's time to take on the next boss, which, if I recall correctly, we're about to face up against with Joka himself, so... That seems pretty standard stuff for the most part. Again, if you ever experienced the previous two versions before, so... Yeah, everything else will become to expect, you know? Although, technically speaking though, there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well. That, as it turns out as well, that for what I've found out, there is actually a full website that's been on live for Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, and currently so far they've listed for about 3 party games they somehow got, and as a result they've contained Race, which I'm glad that was featured, and another one being Banana Hunt and Robot Smash, and I think that's as far as they can able to address that. which is especially notable concerning the fact that I'm guessing the reason why that Banana Rumble was going to be exclusive to Nintendo Switch rather than multiple platforms, unlike the other two games, is about the fact that I'm pretty concerned for the fact that it does heavily utilizes with the forms of maybe a lot of people seemed able to keep on buying online subscription services for Nintendo Switch up to this point. Well, who knows at this point, because obviously no matter what though, we are still waiting for more information about the forms of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door on Switch, because I am so desperate to able to know about the forms of what's going to be new that's going to be involved in that particular amazing remake coming up. And exponentially speaking, we'll have to wait and find out during the forms of about a couple of days time, like sometime either in March or April. My guess it will be April, because no matter what though, about the fact that they are still speculating for the fact that, well, hopefully we're able to get the last batch of first-party Nintendo titles for Nintendo Switch before they move on to the next system, at least as far as I'm usually concerned of. But then again, we'll probably let Maxi will mention more about the forms of tons of announcements they did bring, thanks to the forms of the most recent Pokemon Presents during the forms of today. So, oh jeez, it looks like we're about to be rising up. And as it turns out, it's about the fact that Joka, he's gonna able to take us down. So, and he becomes huge, or somewhat bigger size. So, yeah, obviously this boss fight is kind of difficult because you have to deal with the forms that specific perspective of where he just decides to walk around. So basically you have to aim onto its back or any other parts of its body, because if you accidentally toss these moo kind of creatures right on the forms of its hands, that actually deflects it. So, but then again, I apologize for my camera take, it's a little bit slightly bare bones sometimes, but that's just mainly because at this point in time that I was pretty much excited to know of what's to come for the later months for 2024. But I do know for certain, for one thing, is about the fact that at this point in time that we've only got about, if I recall correctly, we've only just got about exactly probably 10 days for now until Kung Fu Panda 4 will be releasing on the cinemas, at least specifically the American version, because still it's pretty weird about the fact that we have to wait until even later for those of you who lived in the UK, but still I'm very excited to see how that film's going to be, turns out to be, which as a result it feels like the exact same situation as the films of Puss in Boots The Last Wish, where basically Puss in Boots The Last Wish did originally came out in 2022, whilst we have to wait until for about a couple of months later in 2023 in the UK version. So anyway, and by the way, once he's turned into this monstrosity looking design of Joka, basically though you have to able to match the specific color panels into yellow, so just to ensure for the fact that it actually brings back light. So yeah, nothing right to hum about with this particular boss fight though. Sometimes this boss fight can be a little bit tricky at times, mainly because of the forms of that timing aspect with this particular tossing the actual projectile back at the forms of Joka. So that was definitely the hardest part about the fight for me though, which I'm most likely concerned for the fact that I always have struggles with this boss fight sometimes, because not only attempt to make this boss fight a little bit lengthy and longer, but it's also about the fact that it can be kind of tedious at times, I must admit. So, but anyway, there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well, is that out of nowhere, it looks like we get ourselves the official article from the likes of this upcoming movie at some point in 2025. And as it turns out, there is this story of Avatar The Last Airbender will continue in a new animated film, releasing and during at some point in October 2025. So as a result, I'm very curious about the fact that how that film's going to turn out to be. And at least they did say animated, so it's not going to be live action, thankfully, because my god, The Last Airbender back in 2010 sucks, because obviously no matter what though, certain visual effects are very lame, and on top of that, a lot more dated as well. And from what I can gather, that The Last Airbender in 2010 just somehow bombed at the box office. So at least that's what I was thinking about anyway, despite the fact that it's been donkey's years since I actually known about this particular you know, a disastrous of the film, as far as I can definitely tell right from the start. So But, yeah, as I said before, there's nothing else I can say about this, I guess. Although, then again, we'll let Maxi mention more about Pokemon announcements they did bring. So, there we go, folks. Vision 5-2 has been completely done, and that pretty much takes care of Joka himself. So, looks like there's a final farewell to Joka in this particular, not only for this entire Klonoa Door to Phantomile for the 3rd time, for our channel anyway, but it's also about the fact that with this entire existence, well, unless if you really want to experience to try out the spin-off game called Klonoa Beach Volleyball on the PlayStation 1, then by all means you might give it a shot, but I think I'm also give that a pass, I guess. Although, I was expecting to be able to try to also tackle through the only RPG game called Klonoa Heroes, but that was Japanese exclusive, so either way, that's all there is to really think about that, I guess. And sure enough, once we're done with that particular level, we can now proceed on to, presumably speaking, the 6th vision, which is to be more specifically, the Moon Kingdom. So, yeah, nothing else to say about that, I guess. So it's just a matter of the fact that, obviously, yeah, nothing else I can talk about that, I guess, like I said before. Especially concerning for the fact that there's nothing else I can obviously try to speak about. Especially concerning for the fact I feel like February was an okay month, in theory. But then again, though, we'll talk more details about that if we get on to the forms of this amazing day. For Final Fantasy VII fans out there, then obviously Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will be getting closer to its release, especially concerning for the fact that they've already experienced the demo already, ever since in a couple of days ago, so now they can able to finally get a chance to experience the full version once that game comes out. So, I'm not exactly sure what the physical media will be like. Well, I do know from the start though, it's actually ridiculously expensive, and well, pricey at the same time. But it's also about the fact that I'm not exactly sure it might contain 2 discs, one for installation, and one of them you can able to play the game itself, just like how they did for the PlayStation 4 version of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Well, time will tell, especially concerning for the fact that at this point in time, like we said this before, we've only got 2 more days to go until this amazing, most highly anticipated game in 2024 will be releasing. So, even though despite the fact that we still haven't got ourselves the PlayStation 5 still, because obviously it is way too expensive up to this point. So, I would have liked able to try to get the slim version at some point, but maybe not now though, mainly because at this point in time, I'm still trying to able to focus on upcoming Nintendo Switch games up to this point, including Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, as well as Sonic Cross Shadow Generations for Nintendo Switch and multiple platforms as well. Not all of them, mind you, but still, we'll find out and see what happens. So yeah, the Moon Kingdom has now appeared, so yeah, nothing else to really say about that, I guess. So I suppose, with that being said, is that we got the ending stuff at this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Klonoa Phantasy Reverie series, while we're still playing through Klonoa Door to Phantomile, is that we can able to go into Vision 6-1. So yeah, this particular vision is going to be pretty lengthy too, so I'll see you guys until on Thursday. Later, fellas.